I'm putting the float assembly in, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to install the check valve assembly first. And just push the tube or high pressure line to the side of the tank until everything else is in place. The base of the nylon arm has tabs or ears. They slide into the 4 raised metal tabs that are part of the tank. At the front of the nylon base is a tab that will audibly snap into place once the arm is fully seated. To release and remove the float assembly from this secured spot, you pull up slightly on that tab and pull the nylon arm back towards the back of the bike about 3/4 of an inch. I found only one way to get the fuel pump inside the tank. That is by inserting the arm of the pump assembly into the tank first, somewhat forward to the right side. Then I rotate the assembly counterclockwise while bending the strainer so that the strainer and pump can be inserted into the left side of the tank. Kind of like go to the right in order to get to the left. Then just set the pump assembly on the bottom of the tank, the left side. I didn't get a good shot of the pump actually sitting on the bottom of the tank. There's just a couple inches to go, and there are no obstacles to get it there. And insert the arm onto the C-column's metal tabs. Then pull the assembly arm towards the back of the tank about 3/4 of an inch. It will snap into place. Okay, time for the transfer tube. The end of the longer section rests on the bottom or near the bottom of the tank. It is secured by C-clamp tabs that are part of the tank's center column. The other shorter end connects to the male connector at the end of the fuel pump arm. Next up is the check valve assembly. This is a long section, so I'll try to speak quickly to get through it. As mentioned earlier, this could also be the first item to be installed into the tank. There's a threaded opening on the bottom of the tank toward the back on the left side. Fish the plastic end in first. Mine was pretty tight fit. It took a little bit of pressure to get it started, but it's plastic on metal, so I wasn't worried about damaging the tank threads. Once most of the fuel line is in the tank, you can reach into the tank and grab it and get it oriented toward the front of the tank while holding on to the check valve itself. Now's a good time to sit on the ground and start to thread the check valve into the tank threads. Mine was not easy, and it's really important here not to cross-thread threads. Really a big deal, something to definitely avoid. Oftentimes on getting threads started, I'll turn them counterclockwise first until I feel a little bit of a click. This usually indicates to me that the first of the threads on both pieces are in sync or mated perfectly at that first thread. This usually works, not always. In this case, it didn't really help, so I just kept trying different angles, as it's not easy to see if you're using the right angle or not. Eventually, it started threading right in. I would be sure to get 6 to 10 threads in before even thinking about putting a wrench on it. I would also definitely use some O-ring lube on the check valve O-ring so it slips as it's tightening down and doesn't tear or snag and get out of shape or broken. A 7/8 inch wrench is then used. I just tighten mine wrench tight, which means tighter than finger tight, but not really cranking down on it too hard. Check with your factory manual. The torque spec is probably in there. Here's the filler tube, filter, and regulator housing. Note the ground wire and also the sending unit connections. You can connect or disconnect both 2-wire connections at the filler tube by disconnecting the 4-pin connector where both of the 2-wire connectors are terminated. You have a choice here. but if you need to remove all the parts inside the tank, you might choose to disconnect all of the electrical connections. So that would be both the 4-pin connector and the 2 individual 2-pin connectors. Time now to connect the fuel pump high pressure line out to the fuel filter line in, and the regulator fuel line out to the check valve assembly line. Then install the filter housing, which includes the fuel filter and fuel regulator, into the tank. I'm putting the large lock ring over the filler housing, or top plate. Unfortunately, I'm trying to do this and lock it down with one hand on the camera and the other doing the install. The install works better with 2 hands. I'm using a plastic lock ring wrench that works really well. Some people use a hammer and screwdriver. In either case, it's widely recommended to protect the tank during this procedure. Finally, we can connect the communication cable, the tank air vent, the overfill hose, and put gas back into the tank, and start the engine. You may have to prime the pump a couple times, and it may sound odd when first cranking. After 2 or 3 cranking events, the bike should fire right up. Be sure to pull out your main fuse and drain the tank before starting any of this operation.